Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is David and I'm known on the internet as Unity Freedom. So today I have a topic I'd like to talk about. It's about idolatry. So can idolatry suspend your ability to see the emperor that has nothing on? If you're interested to listen to what I have to say, I'll come back after this short introduction and we'll talk about that. Hi, welcome back. So today's topic that I'm going to talk about is idolatry. How can idolatry impede your ability to discern and impede or suspend your ability to see the emperor that has nothing on? So idolatry, we all do it. I did it. And the healthy part of idolatry is to look at someone and see the example of someone, and you follow that example. Eventually that you will reach the potential of that person that has demonstrated a certain skill or a certain path or a certain result. So if you idolize a sport athlete and you want to become just like that athlete, the high performance, that is just an example that you can attain. On the spiritual path, we follow, if the Buddha shows the example, we can follow the example, and eventually one day we can reach to the level of the Buddha. The same with Jesus Christ. If we follow the example, then one day we can reach the full potential of what Jesus can do. So if you idolize that way, to follow the example of a person so you can too be just like him or her. So what one can do, all can do. And that's a healthy way of approaching idolization, that eventually when you reach the level of the person you idolize, you no longer have to idolize the person, because now you have reached the level that you wanted to reach. But what happens if you idolize someone because you don't really want to do anything about yourself? And when you idolize someone, you feel that that person can do all the things that you wanted that person to do for you. Some of it is physical, some of it is mental. So mentally, you convince yourself that person is helping you achieve what you couldn't achieve alone. So I'll give you an example of the process of idolization. So let's say that you see a table in front of you, and end to end of the table, you look left and you look right, and you see that from end to end, it's flat. And then you surmise that, okay, if I see the table is flat, then the whole planet Earth must be flat, because that's what I saw in front of me is a table that's flat. Then the whole planet Earth is also flat. And of course, you come along, you develop this sense of security, this sense of stability in you because you know, okay, I feel safe now. I know something about planet Earth. It's flat because the table that I'm sitting in front of me is flat as well. But one day, someone comes along and talks to you, and then you may have a good conversation with that person until you reach one topic, which is planet Earth. And the person says, well, planet Earth is round. And you will find yourself intrigued. Now, if you're a healthy person, you would ask for evidence. How do you come about that planet Earth is round? And the other person will say, well, let me show you. Here, I've got a picture of planet Earth that is round. And when the person shows the other person that believes planet Earth is flat and is truly round, and this new information, well, ideally, the person who is, if the person is fully open-minded, is willing to accept new ideas and new knowledge, that person will accept the new knowledge quite easily because there's evidence that proves that Earth is now round. But what happens if the person who thinks Earth is flat idolizes on the table and idolizes on the ideology and the theory that the person developed, that because Earth is flat, because the table is flat, the Earth must be also flat? What if the person idolizes that table, stood firm that the table is the true measure of how Earth should be? Of course, you will have an argument with the person who truly believes that the Earth is round because satellite photos show it. You go to a planetarium, there is a model of Earth that's round. And even you show all that to the person who believes the Earth is flat, the person will not believe it. Because the person is fixated, because that idea gives that person stability. And when you show another answer that destabilizes the stability of the person by showing the person that planet Earth is round, then the person who believes planet Earth is flat will get angry because you feel like it's almost like you probably experienced this before when you are sharing new ideas with people and they get really angry and defensive, as though you're attacking their identity. And this is exactly that. When people are attached or when people idolizes a certain object, a certain ideology, or a certain person, by showing that the other person that they idolize, they have nothing on. The person who idolizes that person will become defensive, will come to the defense of the person they idolize. And they don't believe whatever you say. And this can happen to anyone. Because once you start idolizing on an object, on an ideology, or on a person, your ability to discern, to step back and question why do you idolize this person is temporarily suspended because you're hypnotized by this person or by the object or by the ideology. You're pulled in like you're sucked into a vortex that you can literally be mesmerized by the person you idolize with. And when somebody comes along and say, hey, that singer or that actor or that leader, they have nothing on, you will not believe it. And you will come into his or her defense, because when you idolize someone, you attach your identity to that person, because you feel that you are not responsible for your own problems. Because when you attach to someone else, you're literally taking on someone else's identity. You're basically wearing that suit and armor of someone else, like a famous singer, a famous actor, a famous athlete. You're wearing it on. You believe that that's you. You're the superhero because you're part of that person who you idolize. The same with objects. You can idolize the marketplace, like shopping stores, material things like Gucci bags, Louis Vuitton, expensive cars like Ferrari, Porsche, and computers like Apple. And you're proud to have that. You're attached to that because it defines your identity. Because you don't have to really work so hard to define who you are. All you have to do is just wear a nice watch, a Rolex, or you wear a nice suit, $500 suit, $1,000 suit. You wear like nice perfume, and so forth. You're actually taking on the identity and then make it as yours. It's not really your true identity, but you're taking it on to you and to become your own, because you don't have to work for it. It's so easy. You want to become a rich person, all you have to do, just behave and wear what rich people wear and live where rich people live and spend how rich people can spend on things that you think that rich people will spend. So you attach all these items, but you're idolizing these items, because as soon as someone actually questions the items that you do have, why are you wearing a Rolex? Because, you know, the Rolex gives you time the same as my Timex. So your Rolex is giving time the same as my Timex, but my Timex is cheaper than your Rolex. But if you were to question why he's wearing a Rolex, the person will become defensive, because the person is tied his identity to the watch. And you ever question the watch, the person will become defensive. But the person doesn't have the ability to step back and say, you know, maybe David is right. Why am I wearing a Rolex? This is a very expensive watch. It tells time the same way as David's Timex. So why am I wearing a Rolex? But you don't have the ability to step back when you are really tied to those material things. Because when you idolize something, the process of idolizing pulls you in, hypnotizes you to what you're wearing, to what you're becoming. So if somebody comes along and tries to wake you up, it's very hard to wake people up. In fact, sometimes people won't wake up from that idolatry until the person realizes that the time they spent, the energy they spent on idolizing objects, ideologies, and people are really a zero-sum game. Because it's not really your identity that you're showing to the world, is a identity covered by the things that you idolize. But really it's about not taking responsibility for your own self, and you idolize someone so that you think that someone can take full responsibility for whatever you are not willing to take responsibility for. So now you are not able to discern, or your discernment takes a back seat, and your ability to see that the emperor has nothing on has been impeded, because now your mind and your eyes are all focused on what you're idolizing on. So you look at right now in the world today, who is Americans idolizing with? Movie stars, singers, and their president, Donald Trump. But it's interesting to note that Americans claim that America is a Christian nation. But didn't Moses said in his first of the 10 commandments that thou shalt not have other gods before me? Moses says, thou shalt not have any other God before me. There's only one true God, which is the Creator. So how come a nation of Christians are idolizing so many people who they elevate to a godlike status, and not being able to realize that these people are just human beings? They're not God. They're not perfect. They make mistakes. But yet they are willing to overlook this fact. A person who isn't idolizing anybody will see this fact. Know that no human being is perfect. Human beings have flaws. They can make mistakes. So why would you idolize someone who has the potential to make also mistakes just like you do? So when you have idolized someone, you don't have the ability to see that you're idolizing a person, a human being, and you elevate it to a godlike status. And when you do, who would you listen to? If God come knocking on your door and say, hey, I've got some information, some wisdom I'd like to share with you, you probably say, don't bother me, God. I have a God already in front of me, the idol that I'm idolizing. Why would I listen to you, God? So with people who are idolizing an outer God, a human being, they would listen to whatever the human being says. You see that when Hitler was in power in Nazi Germany, he was a master showman, just like Trump today. But he was able to do that because people gave him the power. You need people to idolize a certain person in order for the person to control the people who idolize the leader, the person. So you need a number of people in order to create an atmosphere of idolization. But it always starts with a topic of some kind. For Hitler, it's about the Jews. They're the enemies. And about poverty, about Germany that had been taken so much wealth away after the war, that they felt unfair and unjust, that other nations had taken advantage of Germany after the war, after World War I. And the Germans really want retribution. So they have all these things, or they have an axe to grind, and someone comes along and say, I can provide you with a solution. I can help you achieve what you want to achieve. So that person comes along, who was Hitler, and he promised these people, I can help you solve all your problems. And of course, when you say that, everybody says, oh yeah, I'm going to vote him. I'm going to get him into power because he's going to provide the solution to our problems. But if you see history, did Hitler provide the solution that the Germans were looking for? No, because most of the problems that the Germans experienced in the 1930s and 1940s were actually their own problems that they have to solve. But because they're not willing to solve their own problems, they then turn into someone that can help solve their problems. And hence, you attract someone who can claim that I can solve your problem. And that's where you idolize a person, is that just like when you see a table that is flat, you believe that the earth is also flat. And just like when you see someone who promised you all the problems that you have, I can fix it. And then you equate that with someone who can fix your problem. But if you see what's going on in the States and what's going on with Trump, has he solved the affordability crisis? Has he solved the inflation problem? So it's not as simple as one person who can solve that problem. But still, many of his followers are still believing that give him time, he will solve it. Just give him time. But a person who has not idolized Trump can see that he's not able to fix the problem. I mean, with the tariff, it's just going to increase prices, not decrease the prices. Because who's paying for the tariffs? The American people. But if you ask Americans, they would totally believe that tariffs will solve the problem of the American financial situation. But all Trump causes is just instability in the American economy. And so when you idolize someone, you take away your ability to discern, to be rational, to step back and ask very serious questions. Has this person I idolized did anything for me? Help solve any problems for me? And in the case of the Germans, when the war went badly, the Germans realizes that when the war went badly, they realized the person who they idolized he didn't solve the problem. And that's when they decide that, and many of the followers, the generals, the people fighting for Germany and Hitler, they lost faith and they lost trust in the leader. Because they thought that the leader would bring victory, which he did. In the first stage of the war, he brought victory. But eventually, he too cannot solve the problem that Germany has. And as Germany was in decline, and when Germany was losing the war during World War II, people began to lose faith. And sometimes that's the only way for someone who idolizes a leader, a singer, an ideology, and any beliefs, that when the belief, the ideology, or the leader starts failing, then the person, of course, will have to go through the same suffering because, just like any follower of any idols, they will follow the leader, or they will follow the ideology or the beliefs all the way down to the drain. It's a circular downward spiral. It's a school of hard knocks. But it's not really necessary for you to go through that. If you recognize that you are idolizing something, you can step back. When you step back, then you're out of that hypnotizing effect, hypnotizing stage that you can then step back. And then you can regain your consciousness to see why are you getting into and idolizing a certain person. Because it's often something in you that you're unwilling to resolve. So you're not willing to resolve something in you, and then you're looking for an excuse. Oh, I'm not going to work so hard to be a good photographer or a good swimmer. All I have to do is just tie myself to a person, a famous photographer, and whatever he says, then I will do. Even if I fail in my photography, it's not me. I just follow my idol, the photographer. He told me what to do. I failed because he told me what to do. So it wasn't my mistake, it was his mistake or her mistake. So when you're idolizing someone, you're actually deflecting your own personal responsibility so that you feel that if you make a mistake, it's not really your mistake. You can deflect it to someone else. But if you take full responsibility for yourself, meaning that you accept that you make a mistake because, life is just a big experiment. Doing an experiment in life, there is no mistake, there is no right and wrong. You're going to make mistakes. All you have to do when you see the mistake is that you will just refine your experiment in your life by refining your actions until you get the results you want. But you're taking responsibility for that. Just like if you're taking full responsibility to find out, is Earth truly flat? Just because you saw the table is flat, Earth is flat. If you're willing to take full responsibility, you would be open to all the other diverse opinions and sources. And if one day someone brings you a photograph of Earth is round, then you would say, yes, I made a mistake to think that Earth is flat because I saw the table is flat. Now I'm willing to take full responsibility by accepting my mistake and then taking in the new information. So you won't live in the school of hard knocks. You won't suffer because you've already corrected your mistake. But for people who are not willing to take full responsibility, they always deflect. Oh, it's not my fault. It's their fault. And if the idol makes a mistake, then they say, hey, it's not me. I will never make that mistake. He was just laughing at the idol. Because, again, when you're idolizing someone, you are basically not wanting to take your own full responsibility for your own actions. So an idol is someone you can just deflect to, and then if you're not a good photographer, it's just that I don't have the right camera. I don't have the most expensive lens. I don't have the most expensive camera. So it wasn't me. It's just the camera. But someone who is responsible will look at himself or herself and say, no, it's not really the camera's fault. It's my execution, my photography. I need to improve my skills so I can make better pictures. So you can see that the difference between someone who completely idolize a certain person and idolize a certain object or a certain ideology. They will just focus on defending their idol. It could be an object, a belief, an ideology, or a person. So when you find that and experience that when you talk to people and you see this, what do you do? What do you do if you meet someone who claim that they are free of this? They are not idolizing someone. But then when you bring in new information, not only that they read what you brought, but they attack you in return, and then label you or accuse you of falsifying information, accuse you of basically making them feel unstable or destabilized because your new information causes them to destabilize from the things that they hold so tight. The ideologies or the beliefs they hold so tight because they idolize that. And they're not able to discern that maybe what you bring, the new information, can help them escape the idolatry of a certain person, a certain ideology, a certain object, and a certain belief. When you see that, when you feel that you're being attacked or being gaslit, it's often because they have still a sense of idolatry to a certain person, to a certain idea, or even to themselves, to the idolatry of their own past memories. They have past traumas, and they have past bad experiences. And when you say a certain word, act a certain way, your actions, your behavior matches the database in their mind. But they haven't let go of those traumas and bad memories. So they idolize their own memory, and then they're not willing to step back and say, hey, that was the past that I have bad memories of, but the person here is not the past, it's in the now. He may behave, act, and speak the same way as someone who traumatized you in the past. But that doesn't mean that the person is the same as the same person that traumatized you. So again, when you idolized anything and you attach to it, you will lose the ability to discern, because you lose the ability to step back, because your mindset is attached to a particular idea, particular ideology, and a particular bad memory. So idolatry can be destabilizing to a person who then is stuck in the mindset that the person who is idolizing the leader, idolizing a certain ideology, a certain idea, a certain object, is always right. And for me, when I see that, I just say, I've already said what I need to say. What I said to you is a higher understanding, a higher truth. If you're willing to accept it, then it can help you get out of the idolatry of whatever you idolize with. So if I gave that person a picture of the round earth, if the person accepts it, the person then will change his or her mind and abandon and let go of earth being flat. But if a person is unwilling to let go because the idolatry is very strong, then in my experience, I just walk away. Be at peace, walk away. And so I also find myself is, am I also idolizing anyone or myself? Because I know that in my experience, if I idolize a certain person, then it blinds me temporarily for my ability to discern new information. Because once you idolize someone, you have to compare now what someone says to what you hear. If you hear something different from who you idolize to, then you will always align with who you idolize with. And you will never listen to other people who might bring you a higher truth to get you out of idolizing that person, the object, the idea, and ideologies. So think about it. Idolatry can impede your ability to discern, your ability to see that the emperor has nothing on. And I would say that in 2026 and in the upcoming years is that be mindful that you don't idolize anything, including yourself. I know it's tempting because YouTube, any social media, it's tempting, isn't it, to idolize, to turn yourself into an idol because likes, great, you have more likes, you have more followers. And it's tempting and it's good if you have more followers, but never go through your mind to think that having more followers make you feel that you're being idolized or you're an idol. Because if you start thinking about that, or you start associating, attaching yourself to being an idol, then people will look at you and they won't listen to their own intuition. Because you're now the external God before the one true God that the people see. So now people see you as the external God, even though they receive inner guidance and they get confused. Should I listen to the outer God or should I listen to the inner God? So if you remain neutral and you don't idolize the people that you listen to, and you listen to your heart and you say it resonates with me, then you listen to the person. Like for me, I'm okay if I don't have a lot of followers myself. Because my point is that people who follow me, if they resonate with my messages, great. If it helps you raise your level of consciousness and your level of self-awareness, fantastic. And that's my goal, is to help people raise their level of self-awareness by also non-attached to me. So you don't see me as one of your idol. So I can help you, if I can help you raise your self-awareness, and if I can help you also able to discern with a neutral state of mind, I'm happy. And also I learned myself that I had to also be mindful that I don't idolize myself and idolize me as someone delivering the messages. Whatever I like to say comes from within my heart. And I share it freely because that's my love to you. All right. Thank you for listening. Until next time, I'm David, saying goodbye.